what has been your biggest scoop to date? Should we go first now?
My biggest scoop? Oh, is he going to show up here, this maniac? So, I mean, who doesn't know about this guy? So Charlie Sheen, in 2010, I was working for E, but before that I had been working at In Touch with Noah, and I had done an interview with him with one of his wives. I don't remember which one now, but they had newborns, one of the number of newborns he had, and he was in the middle of something and ended up giving me his cell phone number, which is a huge mistake, and said, call me anytime. So I save every number in my phone, and in 2010, I'm reading news on my phone, and I'm walking in Manhattan, and I see that at the Plaza Hotel, he's literally in the middle of smashing things in the Eloise suite and having a complete breakdown, and I'm like, oh, I have somebody's phone number. So I look it up, I'm like, Charlie Sheen, and he answers, the guy answers, he's like in a mental institution wearing a straitjacket, and he's like, yes, I remember you, and I'm like, oh my God. So I have like the golden ticket, I have a line to this guy, and I'm like breaking news left and right, and I even did stand up on it. I called myself the Sheen Whisperer, because for like a whole year I was communicating with this guy. And
didn't you set up his Twitter account too?
I set up his Twitter account, this maniac. And then I would do things like, he would ask for more and more for exclusives. Like he's like, send me a headshot. And I'd be like setting up backgrounds in my apartment, like, you know, like like sending sick things to Charlie Sheen, like putting makeup on in the middle of the night, like, God, you know, gotta send this guy a photo. But yeah, that was just because I got so many stories in a row, I'd say that was my biggest scoop, but he was certainly a character. He was fun. Till he changed his cell phone number, end of story. We don't talk anymore.
Winning. She did.
For a while.
All right, so it was February 2007, and I was watching CNN at work, and all of a sudden it's announced that Anna Nicole Smith has passed away, born Vicki Lynn Hogan. So everyone is, of course, very upset by this news, and I'm called in by my editor to go to Fort Lauderdale to the seminal Hard Rock Hotel and Casino where she was found dead. Now, this is not the most glamorous work trip in the world, and you know, I'm not one for the sun either, but of course I had to go because of work, and I always love a tragic blonde or the underdog blonde like Lonnie Anderson. So I go there, and the only way to find out information about Anna Nicole's final hours before she passed away is where pretty much she passed away, which is at the bar. So I spend 12 hours at the bar talking to each bartender, going through, and I find out what she did before she died. And after that began the court case. Now, there were two fathers. There was Howard K. Stern and then Larry Burkhead. So after that, I went on to spend 2 weeks in the Bahamas to find out who's the baby daddy, where I followed Larry Burkhead through water slides at the Atlantis Hotel. And again, I'm not one for the sun.
With your makeup on?
I was not wearing any makeup. I was not pressed. But after that, it didn't end because I had to spend another 2 weeks in front of the Broward County Courthouse in Fort Lauderdale to wait for the results of who the baby daddy is. And I stood outside with people who were selling t-shirts for $20 each that said, who's the daddy? And that's my proudest moment.
Very good.
My turn. All right,
Elena?
so OK Magazine loved to send me to exotic locations. My story is about Colin Farrell. I actually have two stories for you. Exotic locations, I got to go to the Mandarin Oriental Hotel, which is 3 blocks from my house. So as you know, I was traveling. So basically I was there for this charity event, and this is when Colin was basically saying that he was on the wagon, he wasn't drinking. I was sitting there with my friend. Everybody had left to go to the second part of this event, and we were just sitting and chilling. And this handsome man walks up in a tuxedo, and he walks to the bar area, and he starts to go behind the bar, and I say to her, I think that's Colin. She's like, it's not. I'm like, no, I think it's Colin. She's like, no. So you know me, being a reporter, being trained by Rob, I walked over to the guy who was actually grabbing a bottle from behind the bar and said, excuse me, what's your name? And he goes, Colin. So I totally knew it was him. And then fast forward 3 years from then, I was at the Tribeca Film Festival, and Colin was there again. Now, it was a very long red carpet line, and this is kind of what I'm famous for, is interviewing celebrities on red carpets. So Colin's working his way down the line. It was for his movie Ondine, and he's not talking to anyone. He will not give an interview. He gets up to me and my colleague Maureen, and we say, you know what, let's just go for it. Let's just yell out and see what happens. So we call Colin, and he stops and he goes, yes, love. Now, the reason why this is important is if you remember back in 2003, Colin made a certain kind of, let's just say, personal, intimate video, and the star of the video looked a lot like me. So I think that's the reason he stopped. I had 44 seconds of an interview with Colin talking about his film. No, I don't have his home phone number, and I think that's probably a good thing.
Well, mine is a little bit more on the tragic note, I have to say. So I'll just bring it all down a notch right now. So I grew up in Atlanta, and there's a few celebrities who live in Atlanta. Usher, you're always looking for a sighting of Usher, and another one was Whitney Houston. And I grew up in the town, Alpharetta, where Whitney Houston and Bobby Brown had moved to in their later marriage years, and then they divorced and moved into neighborhoods right down the street from each other, because, that's what couples do. And so I'm sitting in New York City, fast forward to I'm working at Hollywood Life, and I'm sitting at a restaurant, and somebody says, Whitney Houston has died. And I remember looking across the room, and everybody was on their cell phone, and I'm telling you, you could hear a pin drop. People were so shocked. Night before the Grammys, this was February 11th, 2012. So from that point on, it became the center of Hollywood Life. Our coverage, if you've ever been on our site, is very incessant. We don't just write one story, we write a million. So I'm trying to cover every single possible angle of what led up to Whitney's death and all the things surrounding it. And my editor tells me, I really want you to focus on her family and her daughter, Bobby Christina. Tell me, what is her daughter, Bobby Christina, doing? She's only 17 years old. Who's watching her? Where is she? She's estranged from her father, Bobby Brown. So I'm like, all right, I'll get right on that. So I start calling everybody I know. I'm searching on Twitter, social media, to try to get some sort of lead. And I get a tip. And I get a tip that Bobby Christina is at Target. This is a week after her mother's passed away. And she's holding hands and making out with a guy that, this is where it gets weird, that looks a lot like her brother, Nicholas Gordon. Now, I did some research, and it turned out that she didn't have a brother blood related, but that Whitney Houston had taken in a boy named Nicholas Gordon, who was the son of a friend of hers, because he had a troubled upbringing and decided to raise him as her own. So not by blood, but they were brother and sister. So anyway, I dig on this story, and I confirm it, and it turns out that Bobby Christina fell in love and was dating the boy who she grew up with her entire life. And I broke the story, and in hours it was international news, and it lived on, and really was a strong story for weeks and weeks. And it was sad, weird, but people like sad and weird, so that was one of my weirdest, saddest stories. So.
Oh, thank you, Claire. Joan Rivers says, by the way, if Whitney Houston had taken a shower, she'd still be alive. Ooh, too soon. I think it's funny, too soon. Sorry, okay. My biggest story, Jennifer Lopez was dating and going to get married to Ben Affleck. Remember Bennifer? So I, at the time, slightly different here from look at that handsome fella. So, Jennifer was dating Ben. At the time, I was slightly different from my friends up here in the fact that I was a celebrity publicist, and Jennifer, or J-Lo, was a client of mine. So when she broke up with Ben, she called me, and I'm afraid to say, I think she called me before she called him to say that the relationship had finished. And so I put out that statement that they had in fact broken up, and it made news around the world for many days. And then 2 days later, she was set to schedule to appear at the Golden Globes, and we all thought she'd cancel. Instead, she turned up in an orange toga. So Jennifer was clearly very happy with the end result. So that's 2 days after that story break with J-Lo. Look at her, gorgeous.
Did people think that you were her new beau?
Sorry?
Did people think that you were her new beau?
Oh, no. They all knew I was gay as a goose.
Amazing stories all. Thank you. I'm gobsmacked.
Wow.
Now, you guys have been witness to some dramatic changes in how gossip has been covered. And I wonder if you'll take a shot at talking about how you think it's changed. I mean, it's gone from a time when newspapers, magazines, television covered it, and celebrities were more at our mercy. And now they fight back with their own tweets and Instagrams and social media. And in some ways, we're all gossip columnists now because we all have the ability to be our own, do our own column. These new apps, Secret and Whisper. We're married, if you can't tell. The news about who Gwyneth Paltrow was supposedly shagging, came off this site, Whisper. So I'll start with Delana, but you're all welcome to jump in. Talk to me about how things have changed.
Well, I think it's really interesting that you started with Gwyneth Paltrow. As we all know, she actually announced her own separation from her husband, Chris Martin, on her website, Goop. So she really was taking charge of her own celebrity story and putting it out in the way that she wanted. When you think back to when kind of celebrity gossip started back in the 1920s, magazines were kind of working with the celebrities. They were kind of telling the stories that they wanted told. But publishers realized that, you'll get a bigger audience if you tell a little scandal. So, and of course that translates into money. So you think about Clark Gable, right? He had affairs with all his co-stars. Allegedly. That's a very big word in our business. Yeah, I know, right? We use it a lot. And then it moved on to magazines, it moved on to newspapers. You started having gossip columnists who became their own brands. Of course, the two of you, Hedda Harper, Marianne Garvey here. And then it moved into the visual medium of television, because it's great when you can tell a story by actually showing you the story. And we can all remember, well, the ones who are old enough, did I just age myself? Watching the O.J. Simpson trial. I mean, it was huge. And that was when we got to watch gossip happening. And then, of course, it moved into the internet. And basically, that's a minute-by-minute playbook of celebrity news. And you're right, celebrities are sort of taking it back by putting their stories on Instagram and Twitter and telling us how they want to use social media to tell their story. But it's okay, because they need to tell the stories that we're going to actually take and build. So they're using that forum to get to us. We need them, so we have great stories. So it's kind of a weird, sick, but happy symbiotic relationship.
So how do you go about, getting your, sources and your scoops and also proving these stories, Chloe?
Well, that's a loaded question. No, I don't sleep, ever. I think that everybody up here can attest to the fact that when news is minute by minute, so you constantly have a story to break. There's, even with weeklies like In Touch or newspapers like the New York Daily News, they have websites, and it's all about that minute by minute. Kind of no longer is there that like expose where you take all this time to kind of work on these long lead features. You just kind of get a little piece of information, you put it out there for the world to see. So how do I get my information? Honestly, publicists, managers, agents, New York PD, public informations officers. We have a really hard job because we are trying to put news out there that really people don't want out there. And people sometimes, I started CNN. I was writing stories about Bernie Madoff, for CNN.com, and I'm using the exact same skills that I use to write those stories as I'm using now. So for those that say, oh, it's not really journalism, or it's celebrity news, or, we're hitting the phones just like the people in newsrooms at big, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and you and I were talking about that earlier. But a lot of people give you stuff on background. So the insider, the source, the family friend. Sometimes it's someone that you think it might be their 6th, 7th cousin, but it's not. It's someone much closer. And obviously there's also legal fact-checking. You don't just put a story up there that's completely not true. You're gonna get sued. So there's definitely a checks and balances at all of our publications. And it's a very, very tough job because a lot of these people will say, look, I'll give you information, but if you run X, then you're never going to talk to any of my other clients ever again, and I'm going to blacklist you. Wouldn't you say?
And you guys do not print rumors. That's what a lot of people think about gossip. You have to check out your stories.
It's exhausting, you're right, but these stories are checked. Let me give just a little tip if there's any celebrities in the house, if Gwyneth's here. The place that a lot of gossip comes from, is this given away? I feel like a magician giving away our tricks. It's in elevators, at award shows in big hotels, so at the Oscars or the Golden Globes, they're in massive hotels in LA, and we all probably have a reporter in those elevators, and she's normally a very pretty young girl who rides that elevator for 4 or 5 hours, and celebrities get into those elevators, and they rattle on and on and on and on. So if ever you're in an elevator, shut up.
Rob, as long as you're talking, but I'd like you all to chime in. What is the craziest thing you've ever done for a story, besides ride an elevator?
I think the craziest thing that I've ever done for a story is I was working as the executive editor at OK Magazine, and it was a time about 8, 9 years ago where there was a lot of money in the celebrity business. Most of that has dried up now. It's not really there. But we were writing massive, massive checks, and we paid Britney Spears' sister, Jamie Lynn Spears, $1 million to announce that she was pregnant. And she was pregnant. It wasn't, a fake. Like, she had to make a pregnancy test for $1 million. Come on. So that's probably the biggest and the strangest thing I've done to get a story. And she couldn't tell anybody. We were at the house. So we went to Kentwood, Louisiana, to do the interview and the photo shoot with Miss Spears. And while we were there, her big sister phoned. Britney phoned. And she couldn't tell Britney because the way those magazines worked back then, if you broke a story, the check didn't come until a week after it had hit newsstands. So she knew if she told her sister would tell everybody Britney talks. And so she didn't tell Britney because the check wouldn't have cleared. So we didn't write the check until after the story came out, but she kept a secret.
Oh my God.
I just want to quickly say that some publications pay and some do not. Believe in that.
The gossip table does not pay.
So you have a scoop, it better be for free. Right, Aviva? The craziest thing I did, well, right when I first started at my job, my boss said, I want you to go down and cover a story about John and Kate Gosselin. They starred on a show on TLC called John and Kate +8, and we still write and hear about them now, lovely. And so she said, I want you to go to Reading, Pennsylvania. I said, where's Reading, Pennsylvania? So I rented a car. I think I was supposed to be 25. I was 22, so I managed to get a car. I rented this car, drove to Reading, Pennsylvania. I found John Gosselin's address somehow on Google, because you can find everything online, so hide it. And so else I will show up at your door. And so I'm driving through Reading, Pennsylvania. It's countryside, and I drive up this very long, winding road, and I get to the top, and I see the house that's on the show, John and Kate +8. I see John and Kate's house, and I see this guy riding around in the front lawn on an ATV. So I'm like, what the heck? I don't know. What else am I going to do? I can't go back without talking to him, or at least trying. So, I gussied up a little bit, put some lipstick on, and I got out of the car, and I went up to the gates, and I'm like, hi. And, he had just actually had a relationship with a reporter, so I knew, John likes reporters. So I walked up and was like, hi, I'm here from New York. Is Kate home? I knew she wasn't home. And he's like, no. And who are you here from? I said, I'm with Hollywood Life. And he said, all right. I'm like, okay. Next thing you know, the gates open. Okay, it's really weird. So I'm like, oh my God, I hope I don't die at John Gosselin's house. Like, this would be such a bad way to end my life. So I walk through, and he's like, so hop on. I'm like, hop on what? And he's like, hop on the back of my ATV. So I hop on the back of the ATV, no helmet, and I grew up with a micromanaging, like, safety-obsessed mother. So I'm like, I'm gonna die. And there's potholes or divots in the ground. We're going all around, and there's a paparazzi there who he's tipped off to take photos of him that day riding around, because that's how it works. And so I ride along with him, and I'm with him all afternoon. He tells me all about Kate, tells me that they are gonna be getting a divorce, and tells me all these horrible stories about her, which I really can't talk about right now, allegedly. And that's really all that happened. And then we've still kept in touch to this day. He's called into the gossip table. He's a great guy, great source, and they are no longer together. So.
Did anyone report that he was going out with you when you were
No.
spotted?
No one did report that, but I became friends with the photographer, so I actually spent the rest of the weekend riding around with this paparazzi guy, and he was showing me what he does with the photos and uploads them like through his little satellite internet connection, and next thing you know, you're seeing them on the cover of magazines. So it definitely felt like I was gonna get kidnapped, like and taken or something, but I saw the other side of the lens as well. Anyway, long story, right guys?
It was worth it. It was worth it.
Strange. Well, actually, it was something very recent. So I spent a lot of time on Justin Bieber's Instagram. I know. That's, I don't know why. But he is over 17, so it's legal in New York. So basically, there was a story that people wanted to kill this stripper down in Houston named Diamond because Justin had gone to her strip club and he had made it rain, which means basically he had thrown dollar bills at her while she was performing. Yes, making it rain. And she had posted this photo of herself surrounded by $70,000 in $1 bills. So I said, you know what? I'm with the gossip table, and I'm going to get Diamond. I'm going to get the first interview with Diamond. And I'm also a very big fan of Google. So I went to her Instagram, and she actually had her email address up there, so I contacted it. Her publicist, her PR, her boyfriend, I don't know, contacted me back. We went back and forth, back and forth. So finally I get to her, and she's like, well, you know, a lot of people have been calling me. I've been getting calls from the top websites. I've been getting called from magazines, from TV. Why should I go with you? And I'm like, well, you know, I'm known as a very intellectual, intelligent reporter, and I will respect your story and tell your side of the story. And that's true. That's what I would do. Of course, I had her call into the gossip table.
We didn't
and
respect
deal
her
with
at all.
the rest of these people. But she actually turned out to be one of the best interviews we've ever had. And she did speak to the gossip table first, telling us all about Justin. She handled all your crazy questions with, I think, panache and class. And she's just fabulous. And we still email and text one another today.
Well, I just have to say, for the record, I am a huge fan of Diamond. A huge fan. So very big fan. So Marianne and I were working together at In Touch, and we were kind of next to each other in two cubicles. And of course, what I would normally do on a Saturday night at the time was, you know, have some Pinot Grigio and read Boy George's autobiography. So in his autobiography,
What
sorry,
a life.
Dad. So in his autobiography, he talked about how one of his best friends, who's a fellow performer and somewhat of a one-hit wonder, this gentleman named Marilyn, and how Marilyn allegedly had an affair with Gwen Stefani's now husband, Gavin Rossdale. So I was pondering this, and of course, daily pondering this, and Marilyn had never spoken out in the public. So I decided to embark on a journey for 3 months, an emotional journey for 3 months, to find Marilyn and have him tell his side of the story. Unfortunately, Marilyn had not fared as well as Boy George had, and he was living in the British countryside with his mother, and he did not have a computer or a fax machine or a cell phone. He did have a landline. So I spent 3 months working on talking to him on the phone, getting his side of the story, and we started sending each other letters, and he shared his side of the story on the phone through letters, and actually sent me pictures of him and Gavin together when Gavin was just 19 years old. And so, of course, this came out as a pretty blockbuster story, since they're one of America's loved couples. And at the time, Gavin and Gwen were both silent, but 1 year later, Gavin had an interview with Details magazine, and he admitted that they did have a one-time affair, even though Marilyn said it was a much longer time. But he shared his story as well, and it goes to show you that a story can be shocking, but could also be very true.
Very good.
Well, that was the civilized part of the show. Now I'm gonna invite you into a real crazy tale of how I got a story. So in 2006, I'm working at the New York Post. I was there for 8 years. And while under the grip of Rupert Murdoch, I get a pretty pretty prestigious. I'm the first person to like qualify in 14 years to do this exchange program to go live in London. So they don't tell you what paper you're going to end up at. So immediately I'm like visualizing like, oh, I'm going to be hanging out with royals, and I'm going to be working at the London Times, and I'm going to be very famous overseas. So I get there, and they leave you, you know, where you're going and an ID and all that. And of course, where do I land? At News of the World, which, if everyone isn't aware, was shuttered from the reporters hacking phones and paying people off and this and that. And I thought it was a little weird at the time. It's kind of like, I guess if you're working for Bernie Madoff or something, I was like, something's very fishy in this place. Something very fishy. So I get there, and on my very first day there, they come over to my desk and they go, yeah, can you transcribe this CD? And I go, yeah, sure, okay, I'm like willing to do anything. So I start transcribing the CD, and I'm like, what is this? And they're like, it's a footballer here, a soccer player, a very famous soccer player over there, had hooked up with this girl, and they pay the girls to sell out the guys, basically, and the girls like wear a wire in a hotel room. So my very first day at this job, I'm basically transcribing what is now becoming a sex tape, and it's like, ooh, ah, oh yeah, and I'm like, oh God, it's my first day in London. I'm like, ooh, ah, oh God. I'm like, I have to do this. I'm like, it can't get worse, but it gets worse. So about 3 weeks later, they tell me that Mike Tyson is coming to town, and for some odd reason, because I'm an American like him, I have to do the story. So Mike Tyson, they get a tip that he's going to this hotel in Brighton, and he's gonna get like a gaggle of hookers and like 8 pounds of cocaine, and I have to attend this party and document it. Okay, so they equip me with a windbreaker that some fat guy at News of the World had been wearing, which has a big video camera in it, and I'm basically like wired, and I'm strapped with wires like I'm a suicide bomber, and I try to get into this Mike Tyson party, and he's lisping and hugging me, and he's like, something Philly with that jacket, something really Philly. He's like, this hotel is really, really hot. I don't know why you have that Philly jacket on, and I'm like, I don't know. It's buttoned up to here, it's down to here, and there's a camera in a pinhole, and I'm like in the party, like aiming at him. And he's like snorting coke off a table, and he's got hookers, and I'm like, oh yeah, I got him. Like, I got him. And like, what do I care what he's doing? And he's gonna kill me and bite my ear off or something, and I'm frightened. And his bodyguards literally pick me up, place me outside the room. They're like, we're done with you, and Michael wants to talk to you. I'm like, Michael? I'm like, okay. He comes out, he's like, I know you're from one of those nasty little newspapers. And I'm like, 3 weeks into London, I'm like, my dreams are ruined. I'm not hanging out with the royals. This is so horrible. So I go back to the paper. They unload all the footage, and it's like me, first of all, I'm peeing in one. I'm looking at the ceiling in another. They managed to scrap together like 3 stills of him, like with just girls that are weird-looking strippers with like bikini tops on, and they're like, we got him. And I'm like, this is so horrible what I've done. And then the week after that, the editor-in-chief, Andy Coulson, at the time calls me, and he's like, you deserve to work here full-time. I'm like, I hightailed it home. I bought a plane ticket. I was like, I am out of here. This is the craziest place ever. But yeah, that's the I mean, I actually felt in danger, but I was like, I'll stay here for the story, which I'm telling today. So that's that.
Wow. Andy Coulson headed for jail, right?
Andy Coulson is now in jail. Mike Tyson is now not in jail. And, you know, what a turn of events.
Well, now different celebrities, when they're on the covers of magazines, and we've all been hearing about Kim Ye on Vogue this week, which celebrities sell the best when they're on the covers or when they're on shows? Do you know?
It constantly changes, and so maybe about 8 years ago, I think it was Jennifer and Brad, then Angelina and Brad, and then this fantastic phenomenon happened, which is reality stars came along and made our life so much easier. So for the last 8 years or so, the bestseller, and it's going to kill you, but it's true, is Kim Kardashian. People just cannot get enough of her. But remember, love and hate is a very powerful emotion. So if you hate somebody, you're going to read that. If you love somebody, you're going to read it too. What's the problem is indifference. So if you don't care about somebody and you fall in the middle, you're sort of that bland sort of 5, not a 1, not a 10, but a 5. Those are the people that if we do stories on, they don't get read. And we work too long and too hard trying to get these stories to not have you care about them. So I would rather spend 2 hours chasing Kim and Kanye, because I know you're going to read it, than chasing somebody in the middle like a Cameron Diaz, who I love personally, but it's very hard to get clicks on her. And then another, you're going to groan to another phenomenon that gets incredible readers is those darn housewives. Like, they just can't get enough. Aviva, stand up. Aviva Drescher's here. Yeah. Aviva. Come over. Aviva's on the Housewives of New York. So what's it like being read about every day?
You're so embarrassing me. Hi. It's awful. Critters like these guys are just, looking for the worst stuff they could possibly find about us. And in general, people really don't like the fact that reality stars are famous for having no talent. And I apologize for the whole lot of us. I really do.
Who's the most trouble out of all of us up here?
Me. No. You first.
You.
Marianne.
Marianne's trouble. Don't tell Marianne your secrets. So basically, it's Kim. Kim is the queen, reality stars, and it must be really, really awful to be a movie star these days because nobody cares. It's a fascinating turn of events. And if this Vogue cover sells, which we'll know about and we'll break it on the gossip table next week or the week afterwards when we get the sale numbers, if this Vogue cover sells, it's going to change all the rules, because at the end of the day, Vogue is a business. And if it sells, copies and advertisers don't bark, you're going to see a complete change in the business.
You're even prettier in person.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
I also want to just add to what Rob was saying, that what you were saying earlier too is that a lot of people care about stars who do things like us, who take out the garbage, who are struggling with their weight, whose boyfriend just dumped them, human interest stories, and that's what people relate to. They think that celebrities are like the popular kids in the cafeteria, and that maybe you're not the ones who are lucky to sit there, but you get to hear all the gossip about the football jock and the head cheerleader. It's kind of like that, except we report on that every single day. Wouldn't you guys say so?
I was just going to clarify that you don't take out the garbage.
She doesn't. Chloe has hired help.
No.
All right. Now, are there any stories you won't do, Noah?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. You really can't say no, because at the end of the day, it's difficult to say no when there's something that you have to report on. But celebrities are those people who put themselves out there. They're the show ponies who get gussied up and they walk the red carpet. Even us, we're choosing to do this and wear what we're wearing and talk about our personal lives on the show as well. But it's celebrities' children that haven't really made that choice. And I feel a little weird talking about or reporting on celebrities' kids.
I think that's good. Does everyone agree with that?
Well, I actually think that I should always be reporting on my mom, so I will tell those personal stories whenever you want to hear them.
I think someone is here, too. Wait,
Mom, have it bad, Mom.
All right.
Elena's mother's here.
Okay, this is for Marianne. We are now living in a world where even the basic news shows, the standard shows, are doing gossip, and in the evening, Good Morning America, the Today Show, and so it's acceptable and where it wasn't before. And so I was wondering if you think that it's going to be too much at some point, and people are going to say enough, or do you think it will ever die?
Well, I don't think it's ever going to die. I mean, people love to talk about the pretty people and the rich people. It's just human nature, and you just think their lives are perfect and you want to know everything. But as for it being too much, I do think that there's a demand for it, and that's why it's there, and as the audience grows, these businesses, whether it's a magazine or a newspaper or a website, a TV show, they get more advertising, then they get more money. And when you get more money, at the end of the day, it's a business. So they're going to give more and more gossip. Like we were talking about Wendy Williams. went from doing a little piece of gossip to now it's basically her whole show, and her ratings are through the roof. But that said, I do think that it's like junk food. You do need to have some legitimate places where you go for news and not just only have the gossip, which I find that a lot of people do. As long as you find a balance, it's fine. But yeah, it is everywhere. Like, you can't escape it. People that don't like gossip, it's really hard to avoid. So it's pretty much everywhere.
I pity them.
These days. It's a moneymaker.
All right, we have one more question for Rob, and then we're going to take some questions from you all. Rob, you have fathered a hit television show.
We all have.
How the hell, with you? Yes. How did that happen?
I'm as surprised as you are, George. I really am. And what happened is Shane Farley was the EP of a morning show on VH1 called Big Morning Buzz Live, and I was a guest on the show maybe once a week, and I loved it. And I'd go on, and after the show one day, I was having a drink with Shane, and we were talking about gossip and how Wendy Williams' show had gone from being 10 minutes of gossip at the top of the show to really the front 25 minutes of her show now are all gossip. It's just celebrity stories. And I also do the Today Show once a month with Kathleen Hoder, and I'd go on and do Celebrity Buzz with them. So Shane came up with this idea for a morning show that broke news, that didn't recycle stuff. And it was very frustrating for us all watching someone like Wendy earn all this money telling our stories in the morning. They're not her stories. Wendy's not a reporter. She's a fantastic host, but she's not a reporter. So we came up with this idea of finding 5 great reporters who really do this for a living, who all have real outlets, and would all sit around a table each morning and would all bring 1 or 2 stories that we would break live on a morning show. And let me just be really clear about this. It's so easy for a network to say no. And VH1 didn't. When everybody is scared, VH1 took this project on, and within a month, which is unheard of in TV, we didn't know this because we don't know anything about TV, but we're told by people in TV that a month into it, we had a pilot. 6 months later, we were on every morning. And so, hey, thank you for VH1 for letting us do this, but that's how it happened. It's a miracle. Very happy one.
I didn't think it was working. On in a studio, that is amazing. I'm sure everyone remembers TRL and stuff. I remember that. And every day I show up and just can't believe the show is in the middle of Times Square in this place. It's crazy.
And then we're told people watch it, which is even better.
I think for me, what the best part is, I told you that I started my job at VH1. I actually had a desk. I know, dating myself again, but I actually had a desk where we're actually shooting. So I actually worked there 10 years ago, and now I'm back. And for me, personally, that's just so surreal. It's just amazing.
Yeah, on the way here, our makeup artist at VH1, Andy, was asking me, she was like, how did you meet Rob? And I actually hadn't met everybody before I knew Rob, because everybody knows Rob Shooter and sees him on the Today Show. My mom's like, you're on the show with Rob Shooter? I'm like...
She has great taste.
And I actually had been on, I had a weekend segment on Fox 5 every single Saturday night. I had been going on CNN and Wendy Williams quite often, and I just remember VH1 was the only network that I hadn't been on yet. So I kept bugging Niall Washington, the publicist, and I said, look, I'm seeing Noah and Delana and Rob, Marianne on the show on Big Morning Buzz all the time. I want to go on just one time. Give me one shot. She's like, all right, fine. You'll go on. Shane Farley, she's going to have you on. So I go on, and this is when it was taped upstairs on this floor, and it was kind of like in between some elevators right there in an elevator bank. And I'm up there, and I literally, they come to me at the opening of the show, and I freeze. And I don't say anything, believe it or not, Rob. I had no words. I freaked out, I froze, and I said, can I do it again? And I just remember sweating and being so nervous, and luckily it was pre-taped, so they did it again, and I was like, I blew it, they're never gonna have me back on, I totally messed up, this is the worst day of my life, but I got a call from Shane Farley the next day who said, listen, I wanna have you in. I saw him, he was like, I don't know what happened, but would you try out for this pilot? And my life changed, so thank you very much, changed for the better. And I've never lost my tongue ever since.
Wow.
All right.
Well, the great thing is, Shane brought, we weren't all friends before, and he kind of brought this crazy family together, and we all wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and it's not easy to do, but we're going to a place that we love, and we're in a green room together, and we've become a real family, as in that sometimes we love each other, sometimes we hate each other.
A real dysfunctional family.
We have a lot of fun, and what you see on the show with us making fun of each other and taking little jabs, it's all very authentic, and we've become friends, I think it's safe to say, except for me and Marianne.
Because you steal my makeup.
I do.
All right. Well, I got to know all of you a little better tonight, and I just want to say that they are real reporters, and if there's a recurring theme through tonight that I've learned about you is that you are incredibly intrepid and diligent, and when you describe the hustle and drive that you had, to get into the work that you do and then getting your stories, it is not easy, and not everybody does it. Most of the people now just aggregate off the web and they just retype, and these folks are real reporters. So, all right, I've in my hands here, I've got some great questions from the audience. I love this one. Who is the coolest celebrity? Noah. I'm going to start with you.
Coolest celebrity? I don't know. Oh, all right, I should actually have my microphone while I sing this. The coolest celebrity, I have to say, I love Jennifer Aniston. I think she is a woman who has completely grown into her skin. She's had a rough time out there, really rough time. And she's so comfortable just being herself. And she's survived this industry for around 20 years and a lot of haircuts. And I think she's someone we'd all like to hang out with.
Pashminas.
And what we always say is, Jennifer Aniston needs nothing in life except a good blowout and a sensible pashmina. It's all that she needs.
And anyone else want to talk about, like, I guess the nicest celebrity or the coolest?
Okay, so the Diva Gals, we do have a very favorite celebrity. She's kind of our celebrity mentor, and it's Vanessa Williams. She is just so cool. She remembers me every time I see her. I remember once I came up to her and I had my hair pulled back, and she goes, "You have your hair pulled back today."
Wow.
Yeah, she didn't even have to say it's not a good look for you, but every time you talk to somebody, they say that she mentors everybody. She gives them advice. We just saw her last week. I told her that I was on a show. She was genuinely interested, and she was like, "How did that happen?" And she just always looks fabulous. She's someone I aspire to be.
Anyone else? Any other nice celebrities?
I bumped into Angelina Jolie once at CNN, and I don't know if this makes her the coolest, but she's certainly the most low-key celebrity. Somebody as famous as Angelina can pretty much have whatever she wants, and certainly a large entourage. She was at CNN in the makeup room putting on her own makeup. She literally was just putting a lipstick on, and she pulled her hair back into a bun and went on TV, and I was like, that's a cool lady. She didn't have an assistant with her, no bodyguard with her, no publicist. And then when she left, I followed her. She,
of course you did.
She got into a yellow taxi. Ooh. That's cool. I didn't. I got into a town car. It's cool. Right. Angelina.
Well, flip side, who is the biggest diva or divo?
Marianne. I know some Mariah Carey stories, but she lives up to the title, which I love. If she stopped being a diva, I'd be really upset. But like, she shows up with an entourage of like, her hair person has a hair person doing her hair. Like, it's so absurd. And then, like, there's just people and weave and makeup everywhere. And then the other one I've heard is Justin Bieber had at SNL backstage, we got the story one day, had a person feeding him his pizza who was just the designated pizza person. So those are two divas off the bat I could think of. But the stories get so ridiculous.
Well, you would honestly be upset if Mariah Carey was not a diva. Right. She's earned that. Yeah. Her hair people should have hair people. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely.
She's like, you ain't doing my hair unless your hair looks good.
I just want to say, I think you can tell a lot about a person. They say when you lose your luggage, when you have a death in the family or when you're on a red carpet. And I've interviewed many celebrities, stood out in the cold and the rain just to get one soundbite from a celebrity, hours. And I always say that it's really sad sometimes when I see how celebrities act on red carpets and they won't answer simple questions, or they just blow by all online, which little do they know that's where it's important. And you know, I have to say, I just ran into Jude Law the other week, and he was the first celebrity I'd ever interviewed, and he was so nice to me on the red carpet, and he was just as nice 6 years later last week at the premiere of his new movie, Don Hemingway, and he was so cool. And I told him about the show, told him what we're doing, and he's awesome. But there's celebrities like Sarah Jessica Parker. She'll never stop for a question. Alec Baldwin, he's a little bit of a diva, don't you think? You know, he doesn't want to live in New York, doesn't want to be photographed, he'll walk around with a sheet over his head.
Us.
So, you know, I think that there's both, but that's a good gauge to tell what a celebrity's like, is on a red carpet, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think that, you know, these red carpets are not rolled out by us. You know, they're there to promote their movie. So if they turn up and walk a red carpet and don't want to do press, it makes absolutely no sense. You invited us to stand opposite a rope to ask you questions, and you don't want to talk to us. It doesn't make any sense to me, but you do tell people on the red carpet. The other thing that I think is very telling on a celebrity as well is who they hang out with. I know if someone's going to be mean or not 10 minutes before I meet them, depending on how many assistants I have to meet, how many makeup artists I have to meet, how many publicists I have to meet. Like, you can really tell by who you surround yourself with. But I think that's true for all of us. I think that, you know, you can tell a lot by your friends and celebrities by who you hang out with.
Is it okay to out a gay celebrity?
Noah.
Well, as the only heterosexual on the show, I'll answer this.
As he crosses his legs.
I would not out somebody. Would I date a? No, I would not out a celebrity. I just feel like it's not really our place. You know, if you want to tell the world that you're gay, go for it. And now being gay isn't that much of a shock anymore, so it doesn't even really matter. You know, Michael Musto allegedly used to like that, and then Perez Hilton used to like that. I think everyone's definitely toned down outing people. It's one of those things, it's just a no-no. And it's also very litigious, too.
Yeah, it could be.
I'll let you come out of the closet whenever you want. I'll be here waiting. I'm not going to out them. I'll just wait.
Have you ever had any embarrassing moments with a celeb, although it's hard to top some of the things we've already heard about?
I had an embarrassing moment, which more embarrassing for the celebrity. I interviewed Ray J last week, Kim Kardashian's ex-boyfriend, who she did that infamous sex tape with, the one that made her famous. And I did this interview with him, and it's because he decided to do a mock sex tape with one of your best friends, Joan Rivers, for her show on We. So he's in there not wanting to talk about his first sex tape, but he wants to talk about this sex tape that's just like his first one. So it was a very bizarre experience. So I'm in there with him. And afterwards, I do these like video hits during the day at my job, and I'm like, where's my microphone? Where's my... Ray J left with my microphone. Ray J left the building with my microphone, all mic'd up, went to another interview, then another interview, and I finally got in touch with his people, and they said, oh yeah, sorry, Ray J has your microphone, he just walked out, we'll get it back to you. So he had to mail it back, and it was just this big embarrassing thing for him, I'd have to say.
Can I tell you your embarrassing Gayle King story that happened last week? I'll let you finish it. We were invited to a party that we had no business being at. And the reason I know that is we walked in and Ralph Lauren was there. I mean, it was
like in a fancy townhouse.
It was in someone's home, and they had a violin player. And we were in there drunk. And we were dancing to a violin player like he was Beyonce. And, and Gayle King was there. And Gayle had just done this big announcement for the CBS morning show. Get that, CBS morning show. Marianne ran up to her.
Sits down next to Gayle for a good 30 minutes.
And
like,
the first...
do I love you on GMA? Huh? Huh, Gayle? And she's like, oh, well, that's really nice, but I'm on the CBS morning show. I'm like, yeah, but how about that Oprah, huh? And I'm like, oh, no. But it's fine. She was so cool, and it worked because now we email, and she'll always bring up the joke. And she's like, do you know what show I'm on? I'm like, hi, Gayle. How are you? But I did get information about Oprah's 60th birthday party, so in the end, it all worked out.
I have an embarrassing story about a certain cast called The Gossip Table. Do you remember this at the premiere of the TLC movie?
Yes.
Well, there was a certain diva sitting into the audience. Her name is Miss Diana Ross. Oh, no, I'm telling this story, okay? So Miss Diana Ross, because her son Evan was in the movie, was sitting in the theater, and they were like, oh my God, it's Diana! That was their first mistake. So they're like, we're gonna get a picture, we're gonna get a picture. So the four of them run up to Miss Diana Ross. I'm still in my seat like, I can't wait to see how this ends. They run up and they're like, oh, Diana, we're so excited, we're big fans.
I play Diana. You guys run up to me.
Diana, can we take a picture?
So
We're standing here, she goes, mm-mm. And turns around on us. We're like,
So basically, they ask her for a picture, and she's with her assistant, and she whispers to her assistant, and her assistant says to them, as you told me, no, it's not a good time, right?
We're sitting this far away.
right there.
So they come back to the seat, and they're all sulky, and they're like, oh, Diana wouldn't talk to us. I was like, mm-hmm. So I walked over, and she also happened to be with her daughter, Rhonda Ross, who, if you remember back in the day, was on a soap called Another World. I used to cover soap operas, so I actually know Rhonda. So I walked up, and I said, Rhonda, it's great to see you again. She's like, oh, girl, how you doing? I'm like, I'm doing fine. And then I said, hi, Miss Ross. And she said, hello. So the lesson learned, when you're dealing with a diva, we always call her what first? Miss Ross. Absolutely, lesson learned.
That's probably the most important thing you can take home tonight if you ever meet Diana Ross.
We all
call
walked
her
out.
Miss Ross.
Miss Ross.
She's like, bye, Delana. We're like, bye,
She actually
Diana
asked
Ross.
me if I could get her seat changed. She was like, this is not a great seat. Could you get it changed for me? And I'm like, let me talk to VH1. I can make that happen for you, Miss Ross.
Well, I think we may have to wrap it up. Do we?
That was fun.
Nice.
The Oscars, they're going to start playing the music. Walking out.
So different from the Oscars. So different. So different.
I had a lot more fun. All right. Well, it's been incredibly great to learn more about you, and I am now going to be addicted to your show.
Thank you. George and Joanna, everybody.
Yeah. I guess- All right.